All throughout my life, I've heard entrepreneurs referred to as risk takers. But although I've been a career entrepreneur, I started my first business when I was 19, over 12 years ago. There was an e-commerce business, and then I've since started, bought, and sold other businesses. I have never, ever felt like a risk taker. Like, yes, I know there's risk involved in it. The businesses could fail, they could not perform as well. There could be market changes that put me out of business or cause a decline. And I have had some failures. I'm not immune to them. I have just never, ever felt like a risk taker. So a few days ago, I was listening to a podcast and someone finally said it. And I'm like, yes, that hits home, right? Entrepreneurs are not risk takers. But what are we? We are risk mitigators. And that made perfect sense. So check this out. If you ever read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, it's kind of a classic business book. You'll hear the phrase in there referred to as, fire bullets, then cannons, right? And that explains my whole experience with entrepreneurship and business ownership, kind of, right in a nutshell. Fire bullets, then cannons, right? So that means kind of test the waters with something small, see what works, and then once you get something that works, then you scale it up. And that's what I have done as an entrepreneur. And I think that's, what a lot of entrepreneurs do. And I feel like that really describes an entrepreneur more than the traditional cliche definition of it's a risk taker that, invests in risky or highly volatile businesses, right? So as an entrepreneur, I'm more of a risk taker, a risk mitigator than a risk taker. And that definition really struck home, really struck a chord there. And that's how I tie it into that fire bullets, then cannons. And all throughout my career, that's what I've done, right? So when I'm looking at growing a business, I'm kind of dabbling off in a bunch of little areas usually, right? And then once we start getting something that works, and it's like, all right, now let's go into that and let's scale it up. Right. So all in all, I feel like everything I do is a calculated risk. Maybe I'm a delusional entrepreneur, right? Maybe that's just it. Maybe I'm just entirely delusional and don't, entirely see the risk. But personally, I don't feel like a risk taker. I feel more in line with that risk mitigator, right? I get into something where there's high growth potential, and then I minimize the downside and risk. So that's what I think about an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are risk mitigators, not risk takers.